Anecdotes for success. Level up with truth, meaning, trade-offs, perspective.
All right, Matt, it's just you and I tonight. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. I'm going to say a word, and then this is one of these episodes where Matt doesn't know what we're going to talk about yet.
Which is like most episodes. I don't know, or I don't know what I'm talking about. It's one or the other.
No, I didn't mean it that way. We're going to I'm going to say a word. I'm going to put a little background behind it, and then we're just going to go for about 30 minutes. So tonight's word is criticism. Some people call it an analysis. Some people call it judgment. Some people call it hate, help, improvement. There's all sorts: constructive, destructive, practical, right? I mean, I could go on and on. I think criticism at its best is a perspective that opens up your eyes to maybe just a way you haven't seen things, whether you roll with it or not, but to think you have this absolute narrow-mindedness where you can't listen to the words of other people. So that's what I want to talk about tonight. So all that I've just rolled off my tongue, what do you think?
Yeah, it's an interesting topic for sure because it's an emotional one, right? You know, the people getting criticized or the person, nobody, generally likes that. It's kind of someone telling you didn't live up to their expectations, right? Or something similar to that. I would think. Most of us, myself included, probably don't like that on the surface. Sometimes the criticism comes because the other person it's an emotional thing for them for whatever reason. But I'll tell you the first thing that came to my mind was, what are your goals, right? And here's what I mean by that. Sometimes I've been criticized or criticized others. I don't even know what they're trying to accomplish. So sometimes, it's easier if I use it from a perspective of someone, with a criticism of me, let's say. And I found many times that I'm like, well, that's fair, but you don't even know you don't know what my goals are. You don't know what I'm trying to accomplish. So, and this leads me to a topic that's constantly in my mind because I'm bad at it. Is I'll have a discussion with someone and we'll talk about a topic and I love these kind of topics because they make people think, they challenge your beliefs, things that are emotionally charged, things like capitalism versus socialism versus something that not something like, should people be nice to each other? It's easy. Everyone says that. Yes, we should. No argument there. That's simple stuff. I don't like the simple stuff. It's not fun. But we'll just say I'll use a capitalism socialism one since it just popped off the top of my head. What's your definition of those terms? I mean, the wide spectrum on that. It's a giant. What one means and the other means. If I'm having a conversation with someone, I try to get myself to say to them, hey, can you define what you mean by that? Because I don't want to go down a road, we're butt heads, and it turns out that we have different definitions of these topics, and our real opinions are this far apart, but they feel like they're this far apart. So what I'm getting at with that, back to what I originally said, is what are you trying to accomplish? What are your goals? If you know my goals, or Paul, I know your goals, it's probably a lot easier for your criticisms to have some impact that I would say is important and helpful, or might even change the criticism itself from a criticism to a compliment. That said, criticism is a part of life. It's certainly a part of a business. It's necessary in many, many ways. But I also, it's obviously very emotional. Nobody really likes criticism. Some people seem to like giving it. Some people probably don't. How you present it and those kinds of things, of course, have an impact on it. But that's what comes to mind immediately.
Yeah, why is that the people that don't do anything criticize so much? I'm stereotyping a little, but you go onto any social media platform and you're seeing people just lambaste other people. Whether it's right or wrong, but it's like, could you imagine, Matt, like that's your worth in life, just criticizing other people, but I guarantee you those same people don't take criticism very well.
Well, I think you made a pretty good point. I mean, my guess is many of the people who love to use criticism as their weapon, or as it's just a common thing for them, probably have other issues at hand. One of which is they're probably not doing very much. They're probably spending more time, and because they're probably scared, right? Just like I've been scared in my life, and I'm sure you've been scared in your life, and they're probably much more. It's much more about the fear they have to try the things that you're doing, that I'm doing, that many other people are doing out there. In fact, I got a couple people come to mind for me, and you probably do on your own, and anybody listening probably would as well. Anytime, this doesn't happen so much now, but I remember it did, especially at the beginning when I started with my entrepreneurial endeavors. So much pessimism, so much criticism, so much, well, what about if this happens, and what about if that happens, and that'll never work, and this will never work. And those people mattered to me a lot more than that. None of those people, they're not my realm anymore. Those types of people, either they've stopped doing it, or they're just not, they don't exist in my world to the same degree they did. But I can tell you this, the people who I admire, people I know personally, the people I admire, doers, and I admire doers, action, people who take action, whatever it happens to be. I don't care if it's business. It could be trying to be the best husband, the best father, the best coach, the best member of their church. I don't care what it is. Someone who takes action, for me, those are the people I admire. They don't spend a lot of time criticizing, from what I see. And if they do, it's that very helpful, hey, here's what I see. I don't know the whole story, but just thought you'd want to know. And they're gone. It's not their MO, right? It's not what they just do. They don't do that regularly. The people I know, and I have those people in mind as well, they're just not worth listening to after a while. I think they kind of make their own bed.
Yeah, I think most people, when they hear the word criticism, put up a wall, whether it's their beliefs or what they're not doing, or whether they don't want to look in the mirror. But successful people, right, whether it's the business person, the celebrity, the athlete, or maybe even a politician to some extent, they learn to block out. They put up a wall for a different reason. If you're not on the same playing field as them, or you're not in their circle, they're not going to listen to a word you say, and they probably feed off it in a laughable way, right? And use the energy to get better. But if it's somebody that means a lot to them, or if it's a coach they had from X, Y, or Z point of their life, or a colleague, they're probably more likely to listen to it. Because let's face it, without it, you can never get better. You just be in a circle of people agreeing with you all the time, and how are you going to improve?
Yeah, it's the equivalent of your like your feeling in your hand, right? You put your hand on the hot stove, unless you have those nerve endings, right? It doesn't tell you to remove your hand. So criticism is kind of the emotional nerve endings. And I find in my experience, the criticisms that hurt the most are the ones that hit closest to home. The ones where I go, in the privacy of my own mind, when you can, when your ego, you can pull your ego out of it a little bit, you can go, maybe there's something there. Maybe they have a point. Maybe I'm not working hard enough. Maybe I did miss something there. Maybe I just didn't care enough. Maybe I got lazy. Those are the things that hit home. In the number of businesses I have operating and customers I have, I get criticism. It's just part of being a business person, right? And I, for one, look at it, and I truly do. I truly look at it. It's sometimes harder than others, but I truly look at it as an opportunity for me. Every time I get a criticism, I look at, are they right? What did we miss? I apologize for what happened to them. Sometimes, certainly if I don't agree, apologizing for what happened isn't saying I agree with everything you had to say. It just means I'm sorry that happened, because something obviously negative happened to this person, or they wouldn't be complaining about it, at least negative in their mind. But then I do try to very actively try to win that customer back. And if I can win them back in that situation, I usually feel like I can win them back for life. And that's very important to me. And by win them back, my strategy isn't to give them something all the time. Oh, here's something free. Here's money. Here's product for free. It's number one, mostly all they want in this situation. Most people just want to be heard, right? They just want to know that someone was out there who cared. When I respond to a criticism in most of my businesses, 95% of the first words I hear from them are some form of, "Oh my God, I can't believe someone actually reached out to me. Thank you." They're blown away by it. And so anybody trying to build loyalty with a customer or whatever it is, one of the best things you can do is go, "I hear you. I hear you." And not put up your defenses and like, "Nope, you were rude," or you misunderstood the messaging, or such a human thing, right? To want to go, "It's not my fault, it's their fault." And I just take that out of the equation, because I've learned over the years that number one, that doesn't help. Now you just have an argument, right? And my goal isn't to win an argument with a customer. My goal is to get them to come back. And if that means, "I'm sorry, I hear you, I'd be frustrated too. I see why you feel the way you do. Sometimes thanks for your feedback." I get some of the nicest messages ever. And I've also, we've made some severe mistakes in some high dollar business kind of transactions. And my response has been, "You're right. We were wrong. We screwed up. I owe you something." And the majority of the time, what I hear is, "Don't worry about it. That's not why I'm complaining. I just wanted you to be aware. I wanted to be heard," is what they're saying. And sometimes that's good enough. And sometimes I still go, "I've been heard, but I got to take responsibility." But that's an important lesson, I think, for any business person.
This is why I love this, because I had a couple of words written down before you started talking, and what I tell the students, I have limited experience in the business world versus you. I have kids, but they tend to complain, so we deal with that in the classroom all the time. But the three things I try to do and try to teach students when they're going out on rotations or in the business world or becoming leaders is, you have to remain calm, whether the criticism is warranted or not. You have to listen, and then you have to try to clarify with questions. And what's great is you pretty much outlined all that with your real world business experience.
Well, you're teaching those are the right things. And because at the end of the day, what's the goal, right? What I said back at the beginning,
Right.
At the end of the day, what's the goal? Generally, the goal in my business isn't for someone to try to get something for free from me, try to get some sort of, that's one of the first comments I hear from business owners, employees, whatever. "Oh, they're just trying to get something for free." Are those people out there? You and I both know they're out there. But if you ask me a percentage, I'd say they're 1% and 2%. And I tell my employees this all the time, because that'll come up in conversations with employees. They'll say, "Oh, someone's trying to get," because again, if they admit they were wrong, then it's an ego, you know what I mean? And I'm always like, look, it's not about you and right or wrong and punishment or anything. It's not about that. It's about, how do we improve? How do we look at this, and what is there to get out of it for us? But what I find is it's a very tiny percentage of people who are trying to rip us off. It's generally good customers, loyal customers, people who will be loyal if they're not yet, who want to be heard, and really want you to know something went wrong. They're not looking for the free thing. It's very, very rare. It does happen, but it's rare.
Do you think, and then even if it is the 1% or 5% or 2%, probably more like a 1% that are just off the wall, non-negotiable, they're just complainers, or the type of people that if they found $10 would whine it's not $20. At least by still listening and remaining calm and trying to clarify, they can't run with it as far because you're not putting any gasoline on the fire. I mean, they're still gonna do their thing, but the system of being able to handle the criticism, A, you might learn from a customer, or I might learn from a student, and B, if they're somebody you really can't talk to, I mean, you're not putting any gas on the fire, at least, right?
Yeah, no, that's an excellent point. It's like you don't gain anything with that gas on the fire, which you think is going to make you feel so good. And just like everyone, I've done it. I've gotten in that argumentative tone, having a bad day, or maybe it was earlier in my career when I thought when it was more of an ego thing for me versus this is what I always say to my employees and in our business. I go, look, we're already winning. You don't have to win the argument with the customer. They're here. We want them back. We're winning if they're here. Let's try to do right by them and do good things. This isn't what we're trying to. This isn't our game. There's no winning if you argue. But I've done it. I've done it. And guess what? I always feel terrible for the next couple hours afterwards. Always, Paul. Always, always, always. Every time I have one of those experiences, I feel terrible. On the flip side, I don't know. I've called my credit card company or the bank or somebody I do business with. I've been upset over something. I give them a bunch of crap. I have that argumentative tone, which I'm pretty good at. I'm not proud of it. I'm the opposite of proud of it. And then I get off the phone, Paul, no matter what had happened, whether I get what I want or not, I'm so disappointed in myself. I never feel good. I feel embarrassed. I don't hate myself. That's a strong way to put it, but you get what I'm saying. I'm like, who is that guy? I mean, nobody wants to be around that person. And I'm totally guilty of it. And I feel like crap for hours afterwards.
Yeah. Handling it is huge, and it's going to be there. And if you can listen and be calm and clarify, I mean, basically what we've been saying, like getting for all these loud spoken people and all these people that are like, oh, I'm blunt, I'm right to the point. That's not always valuable with criticism, because all right, great, you said what's on your mind. That does not help anybody except maybe make you feel good initially, but you don't feel good eventually. And you certainly don't build relationships that way. So if it's not some sort of relationship where you have all the leverage, you're not going to win in the long run, right?
Great point. It comes back to trade-offs, right? There are people who they just love, it's almost their identity. I tell people what's on my mind, right? And it's like a badge of honor. People are going to know what I think. Well, just because you think it doesn't make it true, as anyone knows. And taking that approach doesn't win friends. And look, winning friends isn't necessarily what it's always about, but building relationships is highly important. And even when you do have all the leverage at times, which we all happen to be in that situation at times, you might not tomorrow. And one of the best ways to build relationships with people is when you do have all the leverage, but you don't use it. You try to be fair. But I know those people, those people, I'm going to let everyone know what I think because, again, that's my identity. That comes with a trade-off. And that trade-off is people like being around you. I've certainly fired customers. I've on more than one occasion, I've said to customers, it looks like we can't make you happy. And I'm in the business of making people happy and providing them value for their money, which I am. No matter what business you want to talk about, that's what I'm in it for. If I can't make you happy, I think it's better you go find someone who can. And that's a fair thing to do for a business. You don't want to get, you don't want to be in the habit of doing that all the time. You want to make sure you're really trying, and not trying to be that person. But that identity that I'm going to just let everyone know because it's my opinion. Paul, you can have an opinion on something and feel really strongly, and I can have the opposite opinion and feel really strongly, and we can both be right, and we can also both be wrong. Nobody won anything in that situation.
Have you ever read the book, The Four Agreements?
Yes, I have.
By Don Miguel Ruiz, I believe.
Yep. And go ahead, but I have, and I'm trying to think of what they are off the top of my head.
I wrote them down. I mean, that's the benefit of me knowing the topic before you.
Yeah.
But the last several years as a varsity volleyball coach, those were my team rules. I handed out a paper with the four agreements on them. And when you're a coach giving criticism, when you know you're going to get it from parents or players, or if it's just a player feeling, can they be open enough to talk to you about a situation, and how are both sides going to communicate?
Okay.
There's nothing better than the four agreements. So they'll come in. I'm going to read them to you, and they'll probably ring a bell. Agreement number 1 is be impeccable with your word, right? Tell the truth. Number 2, don't take things personally. Number 3, don't make assumptions. And number 4, always do your best. And so the reason I'm tying it into criticism tonight, if you break those down, like, be impeccable with your word. If someone's criticizing you, did you lie? Because if you lied to them or didn't tell them the truth, then you should accept this criticism, right? And number 2, don't take things personally. Like, think back, just listen and see if what they're saying, if it's really objective or subjective. And that could be a little tricky with interpretation, but I feel like if you use that second agreement, you're going to say, wow, I'm not taking it personally. What would I do in that situation? And then don't make assumptions. That's where you start asking people questions to clarify what they mean, if there's some sort of discussion. And then the last one, I mean, did you really do your best? Because people say they do. I mean, we've all been there. And when someone calls you on it, you want to get defensive. And I mean, if anybody looks up the four agreements, reading the book's better, but if you Google the four agreements, there's nice little images and it has them all with a explanation. But I really think it's that simple, Matt.
Yeah, it's funny. You mentioned a couple things. One was the first one, you said truth, which is, funny. It's our pillar number 1. The other one was, I forget, basically interpret definitions, right? Which I said at the beginning, like asking questions. Are we talking about the same thing here, right? Dialing in on those, because like I was stating earlier, the number of disagreements I've had that turned out not to be disagreements or weren't major disagreements is it's a stunning number. And I've tried to learn to ask some questions to clarify, so that I actually knew what this person was talking about, so that I could talk the same language, if you will. But you're right. Just did I do my best? Oftentimes the answer is no, right? And that, again, as we said earlier, maybe that's why it hurts. It hurts so bad. But listening, not taking it personally, which is hard, but believe me, it gets easier with practice. As a guy who's made a lot of mistakes and had to make a lot of apologies, it gets a lot easier. But I think you're right. Those four agreements hit the nail on the head with it. I think the hardest thing for people is to take their ego out of it.
Yeah, and again, there's all the cliches. If you're the smartest person in the room, it's time to find a new room, right? I mean, we can talk about stuff like that, but if we are wired to get a process down, to get comfortable, and then we're kind of trained to take the easy way out with our minds. That's why we have technology. That's why, we take shortcuts. But the most successful human beings in whatever field you're in know when you get to that point, you need criticism more than ever, right? More constructive, but you need to keep asking yourself, am I doing my best? Is what they're saying really true? If I don't understand it, what should I do about it? I mean, I don't know, you and me, you know, we've gone through different paths in life, but we think a lot of the same way. And I have no problem when someone criticizes me, right? I think I have more of a problem when they don't do it face to face with me.
Sure. Yeah.
And I think the older I get now, I just dismiss that. It doesn't even matter.
Yeah.
So
I'm the same way. It doesn't mean a thing to me in that way. But you touched on something there that I think is vital. It's the whole accountability, right? I mean, the whole purpose, hopefully, is that you realize you are or aren't at fault, or sometimes it's not even fault. Sometimes people have different expectations, and you just have to change the expectations of one person or the other or both. But the accountability factor, and I had two memorable conversations this weekend that came down to accountability with other business people. Just the lack of accountability we see out there right now. It's one of those things that stands out so much to, I guess, most people these people I would consider leaders. What they want out of people's accountability. They don't care about mistakes. Mistakes are part of growth. Mistakes are part of business or teaching or whatever we're talking about. There's nothing that mistakes aren't part of. Mistakes happen. Nobody I talk to might. I mean, I guess if you're in NASA, a mistake might be harder to handle than some areas, but you get my point. Mistakes are, and even they have to make mistakes to grow. It's the accountability that we're desperate for and looking for from people. The, hey, you're right, I screwed up. Hey, that's my fault. And then the fixing of it, right? Or the attempt to fix it. Not just, sorry, I was late today, and then tomorrow, I'm late again. You know what I mean? It's accountability also requires action to show that you're trying to fix it. But you know, if you're accountable, criticism's bound to come. And it's bound to hurt at times, but know what that is then bound to do? Help you grow. And that's what I want out of my employees. That's what I want out of myself. That's what I want out of my loved ones. That's what I want out of my friends and business partners. I want people who are willing to grow. And in order to be willing to grow, you got to be accountable.
yeah, you know, it's the two words I hate more than any in combination when I ask a student something and they say, my bad. There's no accountability to that. You know, by the end of the year, a lot of them are saying thank you, or I'll think about it, or, oh, I didn't see it that way. And now we can have a discussion. But when they say my bad, well, yeah, it is your bad. That's why we're talking about it. Like, if it was my bad, I'd be apologizing to you.
But it's just a dismissive thing on their part, right? Yeah, the mistake happened. Let it go. I don't want to talk about it anymore. It's let's dismiss it. And I'm sure it's because there's no accountability and growth potential there, right?
Absolutely, Matt. I love these topics. I
too.
think we solve more problems today, which is a good thing.
I hope so.
And we'll see you next time.
All right, see ya.
Yeah, bye.